Welcome to the Legendary Upside podcast. My name is Pat Crane. You can find all of my content at legendaryupside.com. With me today, the former colleagues and best blurbers in the game, Denny Carter and Patrick Daugherty, RotoPat. How you guys doing?
Former colleagues, current enemies. I think I'm going to let this go. Sure.
Always be treated.
Yeah, sure. I treat you the exact same as I always did, and frequently go on your podcast and frequently have you on our podcast. But no.
Two guys I'm having a blood feud with, RotoPat and Denny. Guys, what's up?
We are on the line. Thanks for having us. And I wanted to just apologize for not being on the last time you had the Roto World guys on, and it just hasn't worked out for me. My interns were able to schedule it this time, so thanks.
Yeah. Thank you to Denny's interns. Yes,
Denny for once not big time in us. I've been grinding the leg up. By the way, I've done a few best ball drafts. I did one yesterday, to be honest, and I thought about not even bringing it up because I can't share the team. It's bad.
Oh no, what happened?
It's bad. Well, Tua Tagovailoa and Jared Goff happened. So those are they're the two closest things I have to a stack. And with Tua, it was only with Reek. And with Goff, Reek and Jonu.
Oh, it's a double stack, dude. You're good.
Does that even really count, man?
Yeah, sure.
It does.
And I went robust RB because I've been thinking not truly robust RB, but I mean, Crane, you've been alluding to it. Your guys' posse, you talk about the receiver Avalanche.
Yeah,
I've seriously never seen anything like it this year. It's just
pretty crazy, huh?
It's to the point where it is like counterproductive. And I really think I have never observed this phenomenon in my entire life.
When you say counterproductive, like what do you mean?
I have never observed this phenomenon in my entire life. It's not happening on DK best ball where Denny and Kyle assure me the fields are quite soft. Underdog, I for the first time ever, I've seen a field that is too sharp. And like the group think is just too strong. And it's kind of like Major League Baseball right now, where all 30 teams have the exact same analytical approach, and it's kind of making the game like the exact same, and like creating a shortage of certain kinds of players that maybe honestly aren't even that valuable. Like in baseball, the approach is just throw until your arm falls off, and then their arms just fall off after 45 innings. I feel like the field is officially too sharp, and there's got to be. Like I feel like there's room for like a game theorist to just come out and like wreck the field and like do like total contrarian approach, which I'm sure people are trying to do.
But that is the tricky part, that because it's like right when if it's efficient, then it's hard to counter. And I do think this is hard to counter with, it's not like when everyone's taking running backs early, you could like one of the best strategies was just to not do that and take wide receivers instead. Zero running back was really effective in that environment. But now that the environment is so different, maybe there is a counter. Maybe maybe you can go with some of these running backs that are underpriced in like rounds 4 and 5. And Jacob Sanderson has written about maybe you play the running back more in the flex that way, and you can go a little bit lighter at receiver. Mm-hmm. But I don't think you can do like what did you do in this team? Like, did you?
Well, I think you'd actually just kind of made the same point I was attempting to make with baseball. Is like, you can't unsee the best approach. Like baseball can't unsee the best approach for velocity and launch angle. Like, and I guess I shouldn't expect best ball drafters to unsee the best approaches clearly to hammer receiver, but it's just like, man, like there used to be multiple ways people built teams, and now there's only one way that people
I see the best ball guys. They say this thing, scroll the F down. This is something I've seen, and it makes sense. I think that's what Pat's getting at, is like if you simply scroll down 2 inches, you'll see players that might make your team different. But I really do think when I hear scroll the F down, and I'm keeping it clean for the kids, is that you're talking about like take a player 3 picks before ADP. That's really
I saw no ADP deviation like at all. Like
I was on with Davis. I was on with Davis yesterday, and he someone in the comments went, interesting how these so-called experts rarely deviate from ADP.
That is funny.
Indeed why they're experts, because they are creating the ADP and then of course not deviating from it, and of course you have to take value. And if you don't take value, you lose. So it's like you can't unsee the best approach, but it's just like, man, there used to be other approaches. I can't find, how do you find teams. How do you find DraftKings? Denny and Carter, you can do whatever the hell you want. They put $200.
No, I will say on DraftKings it gets crazy. It gets a little wild where you're like, okay, like I'm not going to take this quarterback here because he will clearly come back to me in 7 picks, and he doesn't because someone took him as their third unstacked quarterback,
or fourth.
Yeah. So it gets hairy on DraftKings. I'm not going to pretend like
you got to know, there's rooms where you go, oh, I'm in one of these. I'm going to reach for a quarterback. It's time to make sure I don't get shut out.
Yes.
And but you know what? It's still a lot of fun.
I was about to say I did unstack. I was about to say I was one of those sickos and did unstacked golf, but no, I had JMO. I forgot.
Jeez.
I would find a team. I can't find it. Here we go.
Honestly, you would need to leave the show if you had unstacked golf.
Unstacked golf is.
Listen, I didn't unstack golf. And so listen, bad. I am sick enough. I'm sick enough where the final 2 or 3 rounds, I was like, my brain was like, look, you got to at least consider Khalif Raymond. Like you got to at least consider Khalif Raymond. Or like my brain thankfully didn't tell me I had to at least consider Brock Wright, but it was like, you have to. At least
that's really sick. That's almost dynasty brain sick.
I know. And I would never quote unstack Goff. To be clear, I did stack him, but it was only with one guy. It was with JMO, and we desperately need JMO. But we love our JMO. They call him JMO. That was not very good. But,
I prefer the Leno. I'll say that.
Get the hell up here, JMO. No, that wasn't him at all.
Who was that?
That was like New York Trump.
Yeah, that's right.
Island Trump somehow.
Oh man, we need Trump to get in the best ball.
A lot of people don't do young Trump. That could be a corner for you.
So here I had Tua, Goff, Henry, Etienne, Cook, Dobbins, Deneric, Reek, Devontae, Keon Coleman, JMO, Sutton, A.D. Mitchell, Malachi Corley, Javon Baker, and Njoku, Conklin, and Jonas Smith. I had 3 tight ends.
I was waiting for one good player to rename
it. As they ask me on the X platform, formerly known as Twitter, did you not have a first-round pick?
To be fair, I had Tyreek Hill.
I mean, that's what they ask me, though. When I don't have a good running back, they go, you didn't have a first-rounder.
So I was a little – I totally – the Week 17 thing – I actually downloaded a PDF of the.
We got to do a draft. We got to. We're not doing that today, but we got to do one.
I had a PDF of the leg up rankings where it has the Week 17 run backs, and I just didn't do it. Didn't process that one.
Well, let's get back into your comfort zone here and talk about the news. We got training camps, in full swing here. We got preseason football. Technically already kicked off with the Hall of Fame game, but we got that just around the corner. We're going to be looking at snap counts with the ones, who's playing with the starting quarterbacks, which guys are getting left out there way too long. Darius Slayton probably. All this stuff we're going to have this new round of news, but even to date, there's been a lot to keep up with. A lot has changed. Perceptions of certain backfields. Players are kind of having like a little bit of a drumbeat to their training camp already. There's some guys that it's starting to feel a little concerning. So want to dive in here. I want to start with the Bengals backfield. The Chase Brown, Zach Moss ADPs are in the process of flipping, where Moss is going to ultimately go ahead of him, I think. Moss was available in the 120s of these best ball drafts for a long time. Chase Brown was available in the 120s of these best ball drafts for a while. Zach Moss was like more of an 8th rounder. They're now both 9th rounders. And I think maybe Chase Brown ends up going in the 8th, or I could see him going as high as the 7th if it looks like he's kind of consolidating his position as the starter there. But want to get your guys' thoughts on like what we've gotten out of camp from the Bengals backfield, because it seemed very bullish initially for Chase Brown. Maybe it's not like clear cut that he's the starter though. Where are you guys at on this?
Denny Carter.
We talked with ESPN's Ben Baby in our AFC North preview, and I mean he didn't outright say that one guy was going to play over the other, but he seemed to be pretty bullish on Chase Brown, especially from a pass catching standpoint. there was no, of course, there are no guarantees from a beat writer about who gets the goal line work, short yardage situations and all that. That probably, it seems like Moss, but I actually saw in your newsletter today, Corain, that you pointed out correctly that Zach Moss is making backup money, and so they didn't reach out and sign him to a rich deal where we can say, okay, we know they want to use him in some, in a big way as a lead back. So I'm actually writing, just as a long-winded way of saying this, I'm actually writing a piece for Roto World on boring running backs, and which is my new passion.
He's trying to go full heel turn.
And but here's the thing: when the boring running back has the same ADP basically as the exciting running back, I go with the exciting running back. So it seems like that the ADP situation is so similar with Chase Brown and Moss that I feel like there's no real reason to chase Moss.
To piggyback off Denny and to also promote our show, the Roto World Football Show, that someone on the show used to be on. This used to be only two of us on the show. There used to be three of us. Now, to piggy off that, Denny and I, without exaggerating, we asked Ben Baby like 4 or 5 different ways. Like, we know you can't like tell us who it's going to be. Like, you're just kind of guessing, but who's it going to be? And we would stare at him for like 10 seconds. And he was like everyone else. He was having a hard time drawing like real conclusions, especially for the preseason or whatever, because the preseason will probably actually matter for these two guys a little bit. Maybe it won't. I don't know. It doesn't matter for anyone these days anymore. But it seemed like the only concrete takeaway he had is what Denny just said. Was the only thing he could say for sure is that they were liking Chase Brown in the passing game. And Corain, you're right that there's kind of been a Zach Moss drumbeat lately. And I tell people, like, the one thing, like, listen, the camp reports could be wrong. You can ignore just like a one-off camp report. You shouldn't ignore drum beats, and even the drum beat might be wrong, but you have to pay attention when there's like a pattern, obviously. That's true, except for if it's Zach Moss. He's just bad, so you can just move on. And he was good for 3 or 4 games one time ever when Jonathan Taylor started to begin last season. They tried to run it back with Zach Moss, and he was just horrible the second time Jonathan Taylor got hurt. And I mean, sorry to be glib, but I still think that I agree with Denny. Like, there's only one of these guys has any semblance of unknown upside, and it's Chase Brown. And both of them have very serious downside, including like 90-year-old second-year pro Chase Brown. But he's the only one with any untapped upside, and he's where I would lean.
Very athletic for a 90-year-old, though.
Yeah, he is.
My thing with Chase Brown and Zach Moss is like it seems that we just were wrong about who the better bet was. Chase Brown looks like he's the better bet, right? It should have been going ahead the entire time, but he's still like not that strong of a bet. So if he's too expensive, so I've been taking a ton of them in the 9th. I wrote about this today on Legendary Upside. I've got this article series that I've done 3 of 4 parts of that's out if people want to check out. But I wrote up both these backs, so they're both going in the 9th round. And I've been pretty aggressive in trying to get more Chase Brown because I was like trying to be prudent and mature and stuff. And I regret it deeply. I was only at like 10% on Brown when he was in the 120s. So now that he's in like, the late 90s, the early 100s, that's kind of where you have to take him if you want to get him in these underdog drafts. I'm doing that. But with the idea that like, then if he goes in the 8th round, the early 8th round, if he flips Jaylen Warren, basically, if he flips Jaylen Warren, I'm out. But I would, I want to be in a position where over the course of the entire summer, I could be overweight or at least even with the field on Chase Brown, even if he rises a lot and I don't take him anymore. But, because Moss, he's a good pass protector. They can throw out, he can kind of be the Samaje Perine in a sense. And obviously there's a chance maybe they do sign Perine if he's cut by the Broncos. So there's some risks here still for Brown.
That's been one of my favorite summer storylines is people living in fear of Samaje Perine. And like a still fairly far-fetched scenario.
I know, it is fairly far-fetched, yeah.
One, that he gets cut, 2, that he just immediately re-signs with the Bengals. There's like the dots do connect, but like it's gonna like there's very far from a guarantee that they actually connect. And I have seen like earnest fear about what about when Samaje gets there? Like, wow.
I mean, does Chase Brown not have like an early career Eckler feel to him?
I mean, so who he comped to is DeAndre Washington for me, which is like, yeah, which is kind of terrible, but also it's one of the reasons I'm like, I've just done this before, man. It doesn't, he's like kind of got this tweener back. Because he's not tiny, he's like 209 and he is athletic, but he wasn't like like a pass catcher. Actually, he was like a he's an undersized workhorse in college, and he's versatile. He's not like he can't catch passes, but it's kind of like Kyron, basically. He had kind of a Kyron-y profile, but not as impressive as a pass catcher, actually. So
and he wasn't truly impressive as anything until his 5th year,
right?
So it is like he's like the poster boy for late breakout, if you can even call it a breakout, which I guess you can. But
yeah. So I guess the pass catching side, I think he's gonna. I would be very surprised if he was as good a pass catcher or even close as Eckler.
But you would also be very surprised if Zach Moss had the pass catching role over Chase Brown. Like you have him in like totally impressed.
Not a pass protecting role though. Yeah, I could see him being on there. Like they've.
Zach Moss is a brick wall. Ugh.
He's a brick wall. Like imagine Burrow dropping back. It's 3rd and 6. Zach Moss is beside him, and he's just picking up blitzes. That seems pretty.
That's terrifying. It's terrifying. Early career Eckler is not a bad. Denny kind of blew my mind with that because it just made immediate intuitive sense when I heard that.
Yeah, I don't know, like a smallish bet. I mean, Eckler is listed at 200. You know, he made some explosive plays in the pass game, and you kind of turned your head. You were like, "Whoa, wait a second!" And then
explosive play.
Yeah, one explosive play last year. But yeah, that's
so it truly was one screen.
I don't know. It's just that one play that we always share. There may have been another, but I looked like for another run that he had, and it was like, it was fine.
I think I did that even with Ben Baby. I was like, play. Excuse
me. Yeah, maybe I stole that joke from you.
Yeah, I think you did. I'm not mad about the joke at all.
Hey, to be clear, I am on Denny's side.
On every podcast he goes on.
Like Zach Moss is just the kind of guy. Like, listen, man, I got 4 kids. I have only so much time I have. I'm not like concocting like upside scenarios for Zach Moss at this point. Like Chase Brown, yes, I can waste time. I can ignore my children for 20 seconds to daydream about Chase Brown. But I cannot do that with Zach Moss, and I will not do that with Zach Moss.
What about Ezekiel Elliott? Can you give us some upside for Ezekiel Elliott, Denny?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, we talked. I just looked at Chase Brown's yards before contact per rush last year, and let's just say it's ugly. So, oh boy, yeah. So we talked over text. You, me. And RotoPat about the Dallas, but we're going to talk about the Dallas backfield, and you're going to force me to defend Ezekiel Elliott, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because according to the depth chart, unless I'm looking at the wrong depth chart here, Zeke is the starter, and Stephen Jones, who I'm not saying Stephen Jones is a great football mind and he's making great decisions, but Stephen Jones comes out and he says, it's between Zeke and what's his name? Freeman. What's his name?
Royce Freeman.
Royce Freeman. And then the kids are also playing Rico Dowdle and them, right?
Rico Dowdle, who is 26.
Right. And I mean, look, we don't like it. Do I want Rico Dowdle to be the starter? Yeah, of course I do. I think he's way better than Ezekiel Elliott at this point. But it doesn't matter what I want. It matters what Jerry Jones wants. And Jerry Jones loves a throwback. He loves to to reminisce, to think about the old days. And what's better than for Jerry Jones than the old days of Zeke Elliott rushing for being the lead back for the Cowboys? I think it's happening.
I think the reminiscence is like what's happening now. Like, just let Grandpa sign him. Like I don't even know who Stephen Jones' son is, but like Cody Jones is like, just let him sign him, man. Just like, who cares? Like, it's $1 million guaranteed. Whatever. We'll cut him on August 30th. Like, Grandpa's got so much money, it doesn't matter. Like, just we'll sign him. We can pretend he might start.
It'll make him happy.
So that's the bit part of my point. The serious part of my point is I really do think this might be the reminiscence now. Like, let's sign him, see if he has anything left. They see in camp he doesn't have anything left. I still, with the Cowboys backfield, I can't envision how Ezekiel Elliott is the starter. I can't envision how Rico Dowdle is the starter. I obviously can't envision how Deuce Vaughn gets like a 30-40% snap roll. And when Denny was talking, I had the intrusive thought, like, man, the Cowboys are just going to trade a 4th-round pick for Javonte Williams, man. Like, the starter is just still not in this backfield. And which is, of course, I was accusing people of making leaps in logic with Samaje Perine. I'm making several leaps in logic with the Cowboys, but so like I don't draft enough, so I have this luxury to be like, I'm not taking a Cowboys running back. I don't care. Like obviously you cannot do that if you're drafting 300 or 400 teams, or even if you're doing like high stakes. You're not even doing that many teams, so you're doing like 5 or 6 say like high stakes teams. And if the ADP value is, or the league's too deep, you're gonna have to confront that possibility at some point. But I view the Cowboys backfield as like under construction, and that we are still like there are cases you can make, but they're all just basically blind guesses. And I feel like it's almost as likely of an outcome as any other, but the lead back still isn't even on the team.
So this one, I'm big into Dowdle because he has shown enough, and he's gotten enough buzz from the actual coaches in terms of what he's shown in the offseason and in training camp, and then from the beat writers in training camp, to where I think he's probably the answer. And the getting the right answer when what you win is the Cowboys starting running back seems like such a smash. And then from a best ball perspective, like in some ways from a season long perspective, he's better because, you can cut him if he's not the Cowboys starter. But from a best ball perspective, it's not like Zeke's going to just like have an 80% snap share. Like there's going to be room for someone else. So there's a little bit of a floor here, I think, with Dowdle, more than you really have a right to, given that we don't know anything about him really. But so I have a couple quotes from The Athletic here I want to share with you guys. This one article is talking about the 53-man roster and mentions the whole thing about Royce Freeman, the quote that Stephen Jones gave on him being, awesome. And basically then we'll let the young guys between Dowdle and Malik Davis and those guys battle it out after Zeke and Royce. So in his mind, depth chart is pretty set that Royce is the backup. But then the beat writer goes, at this point, it would be a surprise for Dowdle not to make it, meaning the roster. But I'm like, I don't like hearing that. And then the next sentence is, he has to be the favorite to lead the team in rushing.
Yeah, it was.
Please stop playing with my emotions.
It was tortured. It was quite a journey, and I saw a Sam Sherman screen grab, and I was like, "Where is this going next?"
Yeah.
So he's saying like, unless Dowdle is clearly the best back on the team, he's off the roster.
No, I read it as
he read it as Freeman and Zeke are locks, but the Dowdle is well positioned to make the team.
Dowdle's well positioned to make the team, and when he does, will likely lead the team in rushing.
Yes. So
okay. Well, I don't get that.
There was heavy August 7th energy to the report.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not excited. I just want to say I'm voting for Zeke for a third time, but I'm not excited about like him like having some sort of resurgence. Okay. Like, I don't think he's going to suddenly average 4.8 yards per carry or anything. It's going to be ugly.
I think maybe he's in decline. I don't want to get political, but
I'm going to say that. But you look at like Pollard last year, despite Pollard being a generational disaster, he had 401 pass routes, which was the 5th most among running backs, only behind Etienne, McCaffrey, Bijan, and Rashad White. That he averaged, that he had a yards per route run of 0.78. 0.78 is immaterial to this. What I'm saying is, if Zeke gets 400 pass routes in this offense and you're drafting him in the mid rounds, whatever, in the dead zone, I guess, somewhere around there, that could be fun.
The dead zone? Denny.
Is he outside the dead zone?
Zeke
he is well outside the dead zone.
Zeke is going at like 120.
Oh, so it's 12th.
Okay. The zombie zone. The zombie zone.
Yeah. All right. Well, even better, even more fun.
The dead zone's like round 4.
Yeah. Well, I thought the dead zone extended from 4 to 9 or something.
Well, no. Hold on. Let's be real. Yeah. The dead zone, at least on Underdog, is rounds 1 to 18. Is the RB. That's the RB dead zone these days. But yeah, I think Denny is like, it's definitely within the realm of possibility. I do think that even the Cowboys will ultimately have to be like, yeah, man, we can't do this.
Well, here's another quote from The Athletic. If you're still wondering about how the Cowboys plan at running back will shape up, join the club. It seems like the Cowboys don't know yet. Right. Ezekiel Elliott has had a few flashes, but he's nothing like his former self, nor should that be expected. Like that sounds really bad.
They gotta get someone else on this roster, man.
Wait a second.
They gotta get someone else on this roster.
Wait, no, I think that's a very pro Zeke blurb there.
Is it?
Take us through it.
I mean, because they're saying, look, he's not what he used to be, but we're not expecting that, and the team's not expecting that. Yet he's still listed as the number 1 running back on this.
Yet he persists, is what you're saying.
Yeah, he persists.
These are alternate.
Nevertheless,
I've been drafting. I have 7% Zeke, so I actually have been drafting him. He's so cheap that I think Denny's point of you're just getting the emptiest volume on the earth is good. It's a good point.
right.
But I am drafting a ton of Dowdle. So I'm playing it kind of the opposite, the way you said, Pat, where you're like, I don't know, I don't know how this is going to shake out. I also don't know how it's going to shake out, but I think there's a prize in this backfield. And so I want to be interested.
It's impossible that there's not a prize. But especially because the Cowboys skill core is kind of thin, these compared at least to what we're used to. And I almost feel like they might have to run more than they want to this year, or at least a little more than they did last year. Yeah,
I think they're just going to pass all year. I think they're going to be like some crazy.
I don't know if they even have the personnel to do that. And I feel like didn't they run kind of pure with injuries last year too? Maybe.
I don't know. I feel like with no real running back, like a clear lead back, they might just throw it 45 times a game.
They should. I guess they will. But my point was that's probably the plan, but that might not end up being the real the reality because it's a pretty unimpressive skill. I mean, am I wrong on this? It's CeeDee Lamb and then guys.
Ferguson's probably the number 2 target
easily
because Cooks fell off last year.
And Ferguson, he's a good player. He should not be your number 2 target.
He shouldn't be your number 2. He's a really strong number 3, not a number 2. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
what did we learn here?
It's making me nervous. I am drafting some Zeke, which is, I don't know. The fact that Zeke is going ahead of Dowdle and I'm willing to draft him makes me feel like Dowdle has to be a good pick. Just if Zeke's a good pick at that price and this guy's got a cheaper price, he just has to be a good pick.
Dowdle he's 26 years old, and does he even have 100 career touches? Those stories always end really poorly, really, really, really poorly.
Zeke doesn't miss time. He's a good blocker. He does the dirty stuff, and he'll be there for a bunch of dump offs. I don't know. I think coaches, they prize that stuff, and he's a system knower. We can't underestimate the system knowers.
To be clear,
what about Raheem Mostert, Pat? What do you say to that? What about Mike Davis? Huh?
Mike Davis. He's still in the league? Hopefully not, right?
I don't think so.
Just you're talking about late career breakouts.
Late career break. We do get him occasionally.
Mostert said he's broken out in waves. Right? He broke out a little bit probably under the age of 25, a little bit between the ages of 25.
What year was that year? Because he's 32 now. So
he's
I think
32, yes.
Yeah.
I'm probably wrong. He must not have ever broken out before the age of 25.
I don't think he did because he was a special teams guy. And then he had that insane playoff stretch.
Before the age of 25, it looks like he had 5 or 6 touches total. So, I guess it happens. It happens.
He didn't have more than 100 attempts until his age 27 season.
Mike McCarthy is an offensive mind on par with Kyle Shanahan.
Everyone says so.
People were saying last year, and they were Mike McCarthy. We got he got not often he gets the last laugh. He got the last laugh.
He did.
Kellen Moore.
He did.
Time. Big time.
Although Kellen Moore's maybe getting a revenge tour here.
It's true. He's back in the division now. We'll see what happens.
Denny, Brian Robinson, any interest in him as boring running back production?
Yeah, I mean, he's the poster guy for boring running back production. And I could see him he's a guy naturally I don't want to gravitate toward Brian Robinson.
Yeah.
But the way I draft my teams and the coaches' love of Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler not exactly being in his prime, I feel like it's not a slam dunk, but it feels awfully close to a sure thing that Brian Robinson is going to at least get a chance to be the lead back in Washington offense that I guess I'm excited for. I don't really know why, but but I end up with a lot of Washington players. I mean, I have a ton of Jaden Daniels. I have a good amount of McLaurin. Yeah, and so if I'm really like thinking that the Commanders are going to be good offensively, then you're going to want the running back. That's the way the thinking goes. I don't know what's the separation in ADP between Robinson and Eckler. Do you have that?
RB30, B Rob, RB41 for Eckler.
Yeah, Robinson's going in that like round 9 range, and then Eckler is like a round or 2 after.
I think they're both being underdrafted, to be honest. I don't
Eckler's
think
130.
I don't think the Commanders' offense will be good. I think it will be like very rudimentary, though, in like a way that favors the run game. Because I just have a hard time believing they're going to trust Jaden Daniels' arm right off the bat. Cliff Kingsbury always defaults in like rudimentary run-based offense, despite like having the spread it out Texas Tech reputation. He did do that at Texas Tech. Never really did that with the Cardinals, though. I just feel like they're gonna have to run like a ton.
He loves to run the ball.
He loves to run the ball, and I feel like they're gonna have to. I think it's gonna be like a very, very rudimentary, like basic offense that will benefit both running back ADPs. That's my take.
Yeah, I've been taking a little bit more Eckler too, in the sense that maybe he gets a pretty nice third down role. Last year was more injury related than we realized, so I'm mixing in Eckler, but I have a ton of Robinson. It's honestly concerning. I'm pretty sure this is too much.
Give us a percentage.
I mean,
17%.
But I mean, these things are baked into his ADP. It's not like you have. I feel like it's not like a really hard choice with Robinson. Where if he was going in like the 7th or the 6th, then it'd be
then I'd be out.
Yeah, I'd be out, or it would just be an excruciating choice depending on how you're making your roster. Having this super rushing threat alongside Robinson in Daniels makes me a little nervous about any kind of touchdown upside he might have, because I would guess that Daniels will keep a lot of those opportunities and just jog into the end zone. But if he's more like Lamar and just hands it off every single time, then Robinson benefits from that and scores a bunch.
That is the hole in the Robinson argument. Is people have laughed, like they've been like booing me like off the stage when I make this point, but like Austin Eckler has a lot of goal line experience, and I could see that being part of his role. Like, just give the ball to the veteran man, and like this isn't a coaching staff that was around to see Brian Robinson the past 2 years, and this is a staff that was party to signing Austin Eckler. Like, yeah, Eckler's legs aren't what they used to be. We know he's not a prototypical goal line back, but he scored a hell of a lot of touchdowns in his career. But Brian Robinson, I have a hard time like generating fear about his ADP he's going directly behind 2 guys like I would instantly take him over, Zach Moss and Raheem Mostert. He's going well behind Zamir White, who I would much rather have Brian Robinson than. And I feel like even with like some valid concern about what his role might end up looking like with Jaden Daniels' fear, I just don't see how the Commanders aren't running the ball like incessantly, constantly. And who's going to do that other than Brian Robinson?
I think one of the weaknesses of kind of like the best ball stuff is that like I have never once thought to compare Zamir White to Brian Robinson because they don't go in the same range at all. I'm like, yeah, that seems like a reasonable take. But like I would never like Zamir White and Brian Robinson are on like different planets.
So you have to totally tier them.
Right.
What you're doing, like you would be the bank examiner who I frequently reference would be in your home if you weren't drafting via tiers. And so yeah, it makes sense that you do not think that way.
But I mean, that actually makes me feel a little bit better about Robinson because it's some of the same kind of concerns. But I feel better about the quality of his offense for sure.
And not even if like to the point I was trying, even if you don't think the quality of the offense will be great, I just think this nature and style of the offense will be great for him. Right. And, well designed. And the offense could be great because, as Denny said, they do have a lot of weapons. They have a lot of weapons.
Yeah. I want to. Okay. Let's do another. This is a bigger topic. The Justin Fields, Russell Wilson. Like, where are you guys at on where this is going? Like, we had some good jokes. Tomlin Tomlin going to get a text message from Russ, and
yes,
I can't handle this anymore.
I swear to God, that's what happened in March, man.
Instead, he hurt himself pushing a sled, and Fields has been getting a lot of reps at the one. Seems like that's gone pretty well. Now maybe we're getting Brandon Ayuk going there, so we could have a more exciting Steelers offense. Obviously not the best for Ayuk, but on the Fields Russell Wilson side of this, where do you guys land?
Tomlin said Wednesday morning that Fields would start the preseason game, the first preseason game for the Steelers. Russell Wilson would not play with his calf. I believe it's a calf injury. Sort of lingered for a while, and it
keeps lingering.
Factor, yeah. So we have that going for Fields. We have Fields is supposed to only play a couple possessions. But Tomlin said that he would put more weight on preseason performance than he does training camp performance. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But he said he wants to see these guys in game situations. Maybe he doesn't see much of Russell Wilson in game situations. Maybe I'm overstating it. I think this is over, guys. I think that Justin Fields is the starter. I also think that they're just going to toggle between these guys for a lot of the season, because I don't think that Fields can grab this job and just run with it. I don't think he's that good.
The thing what might prevent them from toggling is that it seems like Russ might be toxic enough where if he doesn't get the job, I actually kind of believe they might just cut him.
Yeah, that's actually true. Yeah.
And so I joked about, like, we've as Crane referenced, we've been joking about it all offseason, Wilson irritating Tomlin, but I feel like it actually did go a little unnoticed that Tomlin in March said, of course, Russell Wilson's the starter. And then without exaggerating, like 10 days later, said, well, hold on, it's a little bit of a competition. And so he propped the door open in March. Russ really opened it then with the calf injury. The coaching staff and the Steelers media are both like, yeah, this is a genuine competition now. As in so much as there's a drug.
And they had started with, this is not a competition. Yeah. Russ is the starter. You won't see Fields all season. And then it went from that to, this is a competition, which is a big shift.
Yeah. So they immediately propped the door open for the competition, like 10 days after saying it. Because you're right that they said that Russ is their starter. Like, why would you ever imply otherwise? And then it was seriously within 2 weeks. They're like, oh, hold on. He might. Like, it's going to be Russ, but it could maybe possibly be Justin. So they cracked the door open. And then, like I said, Russ has like really just blown the door open now. All the media and the coaching staff seems aligned. And it just is like kind of a classic failure of imagination. Because there was a lot of finger pointing over Justin Fields and the Justin Fields fiasco. Like, why was Fields so bad for the Bears? And how are fantasy managers so obsessed with Justin Fields, even though there's no evidence that he was good? And like focusing for a while before the pads came on, basically, people were only focusing on the obvious negatives with Fields instead of focusing on the obvious negatives.
And the exact pick that he went for, when after a certain point, it just doesn't matter. Like no one wanted him to be their clear starter, which matters. But the fact that he went for 6th instead of a 5th or a 4th, that doesn't matter. And
I keep harping on the point. Like, seriously, like 2 of the best football coaches in recent American history, and Sean Payton and Pete Carroll, gave up on this guy twice in 3 years. Mike Tomlin is going to see the same things they're seeing. Yeah. He's basically saying he's seeing the same things they're seeing. And why would you not? It'd be all too easy for the Steelers to be like, listen, we hated Justin Fields' Bears film. We're not the Bears. Like, we can fix this. And like, he's still a young player. They can easily concoct the case to themselves that they can like fix Justin Fields or at least make him usable. Whereas like no one's really trying to do that with Russell Wilson. It's human nature. They're going to be looking for reasons to bench Russell Wilson. He's given them like a very legitimate reason already, and that he's not practicing for 2 weeks of training camp. Yeah. And I agree with Denny where I think it is kind of like already over. And Justin Fields throws 3 interceptions in the first quarter of the preseason and is benched.
I made an ill-advised bet with Sam Sherman before Fields, before it kind of became clear that there was no market for Fields, that he wouldn't be a starter week 1. And so he's like 5-1. Like I'm not the long side of that.
Yeah.
So it's a terrible bet, but I'm probably going to win it. And it's been delightful because Sam has had to spend the entire summer just like pulling for Russell Wilson to pull out of this dive bomb. It's just the best money I've ever spent. And also, I think it might be free. I think Fields is going to start week 1.
That's poor Sam. We love you, Sam. We're thinking about you.
I mean, it has been, what Pat was saying, and I know you made this point on our show about, Pete Carroll and Sean Payton just completely giving up on Russ.
Not just giving up, like burying him.
Yeah. It's been so long since he's been good.
It really has.
And come on, there's no coming back for Russ. Like he physically he's lost it, whatever it was for him back in his glory days.
The line, Bart, and he's too small.
He's too small.
He's too small. No. I reject that because he's a thick
He
small.
can't get to the line, Denny.
He's a thick small. No. That's different. Bryce Young, too small, just too skinny. Okay. If you're big and fat like Russ, that works. But you can't be short and skinny. You got to be short and fat.
Russ is weird, by the way. He had one of those. A lot of times you can't.
Bryce Young just gets wildly overweight, and Denny is in.
Denny's all in. Listen to Bryce Young. Bryce, do you know how cheap Little Caesars is, man? You order 100 Little Caesars pizzas. Eat them over the course
this guy's
of the
diet
month.
is out of control. I think it's a problem, but Denny can't stop drafting him.
Denny's finally in.
I just, there's a thickness to
and yet Denny is now begging for skinny Tua. Curious.
It's like, yeah, I know that doesn't line up. But okay, just to get my point across, I was never in doubt about Tyreek Hill because yes, he's short, but he's not small.
That's true.
He's
true.
super jacked and thick, and just his legs are like barrels, right? And so I never worried about his. Now, Ladd McConkey, who's already injured, by the way, too small.
What if, I thought you were going. How hard did you cringe when you watched Xavier Worthy get just absolutely bodied by two different defenders on the same play?
Unfortunately, too small.
Yeah, that was an all-time too small moment. Even I was like, too small.
The scientific phrase for what happened to him was tossed.
Yeah, it was tossed.
Yeah,
I
wasn't really bodied because he was armed. They didn't.
Yeah,
it was just.
He was tossed. He was thrown. It's very hard to throw. Very hard to throw any grown man, let alone a grown NFL player, and he was thrown.
Yeah.
It's why just we're gonna keep going with this too small thing. It's why I'm okay with like Malachi Corley. He's not big, but he's thick. He's well built. So I think Corley can be
hydrant lower half. That's why Denny is picking Deuce Vaughn to win.
I did draft a lot of Deuce Vaughn last year.
It's true. I have him in our dynasty league. Not my proudest moment.
All right, I want to kind of we don't have a ton of time left, so I want to do some more rapid fire, sort of the drumbeat situations here. Couple positive, like lower down the depth chart ish, or emerging into wide receiver 3 roles, maybe kind of guys. Greg Dortch, the vibes are very good on Dortch. Jonathan Gannon really likes this guy, and then Andrei Iosivas.
Yes,
he looks like he just. It looks like he's one. I gotta learn his name. He's the starting slot receiver for the Bengals all of a sudden. So these guys probably both the starting slot receivers as it stands currently. Iosivas is going to have potentially Jermaine Burton working into some kind of role over the course of the year. That could make him even if Burton plays more on the outside, maybe Chase kicks more into the slot, and Iosivas is just not on the field or whatever. Dortch seems like maybe he has the role like a little bit more locked, but both are kind of exciting given the offenses they're in.
Well, Dortch has the role, and he also has the longer track record of production, and he's just a much needed role for the Cardinals too, because Marvin Harrison is one of the best receiver prospects of the past 20 years, but he's still a rookie. Michael Wilson still just a second-year pro, so you've got two upside guys, but very inexperienced upside guys on the outside. Makes all the sense in the world for Greg Dortch just kind of be like the stabilizer, like the third down guy, at least early in the season. And plus, it's a role we know he can do too. So that's why very, very interested in the Iosivas. I don't know, man. Like the Bengals really need a slot receiver, and they've always featured a slot receiver, Denny. But it's like when it's T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, like the need is not as great for Iosivas as it is for Dortch in Arizona. But what's your take, Denny?
The Dortch thing in the slot is a little iffy, I think, because he went from like 80% slot routes in 2022 to like 28% last year, where he was playing most of his snaps from outside. I don't know if that was because of injuries or they just needed him out there.
They did have very little like experience. Receiver last year,
and so I would think, that Crane, I think you're right in that Dortch would play primarily from the slot, and he has a lot of dog, and we like him in fantasy circles, and I think the world is going to know about him soon enough. And I'm not too worried that Harrison and McBride will dominate targets to the point where Dortch can't get a look, because Dortch has been pretty good at commanding targets, although last year was not so good in that regard. I think he had like a 16% target per route run, which obviously we don't love that. But if you're not taking receivers in the first like 5-6 round, or only taking 1 or 2 in the first 5 or 6 rounds in redraft leagues, you got to get a guy like Dortch. You got to get Iosivas, that guy.
Then you just at me next time.
And you right. I mean, you need those guys because they actually do have a little bit of target upside.
Yeah, I mean, I'm tacking Dortch on to the end of best ball rosters, and Iosivas I'm kind of coming around to as a guy who's like, it's a little bit less appealing because I think Burton could be the guy at the end of the season, but he's been like the star of camp is like the way he's getting written about.
Yeah,
like, I'm like,
I know
what's going on. But
and he was good when he got his chances last year.
That could just be honestly a classic. Like if you're a Bengals beat writer, you can't really. There's only so much you can write about Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. It's that could be a phenomenon at play with Iosivas. So yeah, whatever. I'm not writing about Jamar Chase.
But I mean, the star of camp is like a big. That's putting your name
in general. You would prefer to be the star of camp. Yes,
you would prefer to be the star of camp. And some previous stars of camp, like Pacheco was a star of camp. Puka was a star of camp. Kyron was kind of a star of camp. There were 2 stars of camp last year. The stars of camp, Calvin Ridley was a star of camp. That didn't work.
Johnny Wilson, the star of Eagles camp.
John, I mean, that's honestly,
I don't hate it.
Kareem, you got very excited. You got very
guy not the star of camp right now. Xavier Leggette. Xavier Leggette was kind of the star of after getting drafted, and very, very kind of fun personality, but has a foot injury, not broken foot. That's good. Was listed behind Jonathan Mingo on the initial depth chart. That's not good at all. Right. And I don't really care about the initial depth charts that much, but that one does seem like a red flag.
I mean, Jonathan Mingo, maybe the worst rookie season imaginable last year, and he's running ahead of this guy. It's over for Leggette. I wish him all the luck, and he seems like a fine young man, but wow, it's never been more over.
And as we know, the initial depth charts are all about messaging, usually to the players themselves. I mean, I guess some people claim the coaches just truly do not care about the depth charts, and you shouldn't read into them at all. I've never really bought that. I really don't think like Dave Canales, let the intern put whatever he wants, who cares? Who gives a shit? I do think the coaches probably have to have some input, and we know to take them with a heavy grain of salt. But the message being sent to Xavier Leggette that, yeah, buddy, the all-time bust is ahead of you right now. And like you said, Pat, he was the star of post-draft quotes. He was also the star of post-draft bust lists.
Yeah, that's also true.
We really like when rookies live up to their pre-draft billing, their upside, like so-and-so is so fast out of their breaks. And so-and-so's been so fast in and out of his breaks in camp. It's equally bad when they live up to their negative pre-draft. Xavier Leggette can't run routes at all. And,
Denny, I would buy that so-and-so that Pat was talking about was Ladd McConkey, I believe.
Well, and I get a lot of push. The Panthers fans, they're in hell, right? And they're going to be in hell for a long time. And I mean, I do feel bad.
Did you see DJ Moore? DJ Moore's talking about just getting out of Carolina into Chicago. He's just like, man,
He
it's so
immediately
good.
becomes like an all-pro level player.
It's gonna be awful this year, Panthers fans. Awful. And
might have time to read Dave Canales' book.
And so when people they push back on me with Leggette, I'm not posting about Leggette anymore. By the way, I'm done with that. I'll never post about him again. But they say, well, no, but he dominated in the SEC. You know, he posted these numbers, but he did it all against one team.
He did it all against North Carolina, who's not in the SEC, and I think he did it then in the bowl game. He did it. I swear, my conspiracy theory's never been more. Someone pointed out. Remember, I was pointing out that his biggest game was against North Carolina in the Panthers Stadium. Truly zero chance that Dave Tepper was not at that game and didn't say that we're getting
right.
Like we're getting.
Oh my god.
We're getting Leggette. Like, I don't care what you say.
That absolutely happened.
It did.
That's crazy. I mean, and we know that like the Harbaugh's still talking about Quentin Johnson's big game, you know? It makes an impact.
It sticks with these guys. The only game that the only good game DeAndre Swift had last year was against who? The Bears. That's it.
By the way, Xavier Leggette, say what you will about it, he went friggin' nuclear against Jacksonville State. Like 9 catches, 217 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
The media won't talk about that.
He did go nuclear against Mississippi State. But here are the real teams he played. 71 yards against Georgia, 50 against Tennessee. We can debate if Florida's a real team right now. 110 yards. The realest team, Mizzou, 1 catch for 20 yards. Case closed. Over, folks.
I mean, we shouldn't it's natural that, you know, these guys see these dudes in person do things. Like I went to a Bears Jets game, and it was when they had Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey, and Brandon Marshall is a big receiver, you know, and I was like, Alshon Jeffrey is like the largest man I've ever seen. Like this dude's legs are just like crazy long. Like I'm like, I probably drafted Alshon Jeffrey on the Eagles because I went to that Jets game, you know.
Yeah.
By the way,
it gets in there, it gets in the brain.
Guess what school Alshon Jeffrey went to? South Carolina.
That's right. That's a tie-in.
Xavier Leggette's gonna have the Alshon Jeffrey career arc, but without the ever being good part. So
he's already to the Eagles.
Get the Eagles stage.
I want to ask you guys like about some of these injuries that. So obviously we've got like the Hopkins type of stuff. Josh Downs just came down with a high ankle sprain. He's going to miss, probably a game or two, and then his high ankle sprain could ruin his whole season. So that type of stuff is, I think, just straight up concerning. And I've lowered these guys a lot in the ranks. If you have any thoughts on those guys, I'd be curious. But I'm also curious about your thoughts on like the constant minor stuff that we're just getting hit with every single day. Like Jaden Reed is dealing with a calf strain. We have the Christian McCaffrey calf strain. Puka Nacua had this knee thing where it seems like he's going to be totally fine for week 1, but he's going to miss at least a week of practice. These guys are like banged up. They're not. Elad McConkey would be another example of this. I think Noah Fant left with a foot injury.
Entire Chargers team.
The entire Chargers team is working through something. Thanks a lot, Jim Harbaugh. You're the best. So there's a lot of that, and there's going to be a lot more of that. How different do you view stuff like, Reed having a calf strain, Puka with this knee thing versus the Josh Downs high ankle sprain, the DeAndre Hopkins knee issue?
Well, I mean, the Hopkins thing is huge, I think. I mean, he's old. Like, this seems like they had to actually come out and say he doesn't need surgery, which I think is telling about the severity of the issue. I think, for better or worse, it makes Treylon Burks live.
I've drafted him since.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys are kind of sick.
No. I know. Listen, I don't have any Treylon Burks. I have a lot of DeAndre Hopkins.
I do.
Tyler Boyd.
Come on, Denny, don't sell me out. You said he was draftable, and the minute I drafted him, I'm not actually doing it.
Denny's sobbing as he drinks the seltzer, saying it's NWI season.
Oh yeah, right. No, so I think that's interesting, but this whole, I think, Ben Gretsch has made the argument that the Titans offense is probably the worst in the league, and
It very well could be.
I do not agree. I'm going to be ranking the offenses, by the way, soon.
I don't necessarily agree, but Ben laid out a good argument, I thought, and without Hopkins, it could be rough, man.
I think it might still be the Panthers, by the way.
The Raiders, I think are. I mean,
the Raiders are, because
the Raiders are so bad.
This is an idea for a football team. Quarterback.
One quarterback.
Devontae Adams has the car idling too. Like he's just like, send me the text. Like, and I'm getting in the car.
So obviously we can't, we can't put numbers to this, but Devontae Adams, attitude wise, is going to be a nightmare this year. We know this. Okay. Deontay Johnson is going to quit the Panthers. Like he's either going to quiet quit or for real quit.
I've been taking a lot. Ben talked me into him because that he's the number one. He's the PPR.
I'm all in on Deontay Johnson too, to be honest. But Denny is right.
I think it could get so ugly. Look,
he quit on a playoff team last year.
Right, Deontay Johnson. He's a sensitive guy. The enemy speaks kindly to him, and he's not playing on a team that's 1-8 or whatever. It's the same thing, guys. By the way, just while we're talking about this, with George Pickens, Ayuk going to Pittsburgh is a complete disaster for Pickens. Pickens will lose his mind. Pickens will become a priest if Ayuk goes to Pittsburgh. He's not. He wants to be the number one. It doesn't matter what, if they win or lose. He wants to be the number one. And he's not the number one if Ayuk goes there. No, and he's going to flip his shit.
Please do not go there. Yes. So 2 things. I looked through all the teams. The Titans might not be the worst. They're definitely in the bottom 5. The Patriots probably do have the strongest argument, I would say, for being the worst overall.
I think they'll have the worst stretch. I think the lowest version of the Patriots will be the worst offense in the NFL.
When your best proven skill player is Ramondre Stevenson, that's like a big problem. Yeah. Like Calvin Ridley, I'd still rather have Calvin Ridley be my best skill player.
Like whatever 2 to 3 game stretch ends up getting Brissett benched, and then into May's first 2 to 3 games is going to be pretty rough.
So to circle back all the way to your question about like minor injuries, but like minor soft tissue injuries, after blurbing for 15 years, like all I can say is it's like stunning how many of the supposedly minor, like August and July injuries end up either A, lingering into the regular season, or B, like recurring very early in the regular season. Like it's seriously stunning how often it happens. Like, because it's human nature. Like whatever, the guy pulled his calf on August 10th. Like we know this isn't a big deal, but then like without fail, every NFL team still returns players too quickly. Like no matter what, they always come back too quickly. You can see the human nature reasons for that too. So I say it's stunning. It's probably still under 50% though, because like half of them will disappear without a trace, and then other half will they swore to God this calf injury was not minor, and yet he's missing 4 games now. The problem is though, it's impossible to discern which 50% will be real, which will come back. And so the best I could always say with like the minor injury stuff is like just use it as a tiebreaker. Like don't really like be shifting them around. Like if you're deciding between like equal ADP guys, equal tier guys, go with the one who doesn't have a supposedly minor ankle or calf or hamstring or quad injury, because it is the stunning how often they recur. And the main reason they recur, NFL seasons are short. The players want to get back. The coaches want them back. And just without fail, they come back too early. And this is kind of how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because there's so much that's kind of pouring in on, like the very minor stuff like this Reed thing. And then also some of these, it really bothers me, like that the coaches can't just say like, he hurt his ankle. Ladd McConkey rolled his ankle. He'll be fine. Like, what kind of competitive advantage do you think that you have that's so good?
Well, especially when
the Chargers, dude.
Yeah, and if it's still there week 1, they have to list it then. So it doesn't. When the games matter, they have to end up listing it. Yeah. Anyway. So I totally agree that there is no competitive advantage, because if the guy's still hurt week 1, then you have to list it anyway.
Exactly.
Sorry to shift gears here, but I was thinking about Josh Downs. I actually blurbed him right before the show. Out 4 to 6 weeks, like Crane said, could possibly miss week 1. It's a high ankle sprain. They're not even, and that makes me nervous.
They didn't even pretend it's low.
Can you guys remember one successful in-season return from a high?
I know. I mean, they're probably gonna have to hold him out longer than that in order for it to be fully healed. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But when teams actually just right out of the gate say it was a high ankle sprain, it's bad. It's probably real bad.
It's sometimes the knee, it's so high.
And right, it's a shoulder injury. And Shane Steichen actually was pissed at the defender who tackled Downs. It was not a tackle session; it was 7-on-7, and he tackled him like lower body, and I guess his ankle got caught underneath, and Shane Steichen was pissed. So anyway, this seems bad. I wouldn't be surprised if Downs misses time in the regular season. But who takes on that slot role? Do they just put Pittman in the slot at that point? Yeah, because I'm looking at the depth chart and it's like AD Mitchell, not a slot guy, Alec Pierce, not a slot guy, Ashton Doolin, maybe. I mean, I don't know.
That's interesting. Yeah, the Downs high ankle sprain, that definitely concerned. Like high ankle sprain out 4 to 6 weeks is like, that's just, I mean, I don't know, but the
problem is both outcomes are bad. Either he misses 6 weeks or he rushes back and is not healthy and just gets re-injured. Both outcomes are very bad.
Yeah, and like my understanding of a high ankle sprain is like it's like the part that like supports the rest of your body, like as you press down on it, and so like it hampers you. Like if you try to come back early from a high ankle sprain, like it's a problem. We see that all the time. Like guys' production off high ankle sprains is bad.
I suffered a high ankle sprain when I was 22 years old, and obviously there's no similarities at all between me and an elite athlete. But I did not properly rehab it. This may shock you. And I was desperate to get back to play pickup basketball. It was my final year of college. I'm like, I wish I was making this up. Yeah, I came back to. I immediately re-injured it. By the way, also not a joke. But then even after the pickup basketball ended, like I never did the proper rehab, and like 7 to 8 years later, it created like knee pain. And so that's on a much longer scale than these guys deal with. So like Josh Downs
was a very high ankle sprain. There you go.
It was very, very high. Josh Downs will be dealing with ramifications from it all year. That's why they're never the same.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like the ankle's healthy, but like you have a strength imbalance, and like your left side is stronger than your right side then, and that creates like a calf injury.
He was such a good pick, man. I was taking so much Josh Downs in best ball. Like for redraft, like where you got to put, Anthony Richardson slot receiver, you got to decide when to start him. Not that fun, but he's a good player, and I think there were targets available because I don't think Pittman is as good at commanding targets as people give him credit for. So now Pittman's going to pay off the ADP because Downs is.
I took Pickens 3 spots ahead of Pittman in the Apex.
Pittman drafters always get away with it. Always. They always get bailed out. It drives me. I've never drafted Michael Pittman, not once in my entire life. And I've always been victimized by circumstance. Minshew bailed him out last year. This year, Downs is going to miss God knows how much. God bless. Again, I lost the Pittman.
I know. I've been fading him hard. Like I've drafted him probably like 3 times. I've drafted 800 teams.
I mean, I was sure, guys. I was sure. I was like, I got him this time. I got these.
He wriggles out of this.
Well, nevertheless,
he's Jason Bourne. He just crawled through like the fan in the bathroom hole. Like that's not big enough for a grown man. You kidding me?
So I just before we get out of here, I want to ask you just real quick about a couple of like the positive drum beats for players that we know more about, I guess. We talked about Dortch and Iosivas, and it's like interesting. Then all you need is the drum beat because it's like, yeah, okay, I will draft this guy in the 18th round now. But JSN has had a bit of a drum beat, and it's been a drum beat he needs after the rookie season that was disappointing. But it's been steady. It's been since early on. It's been through OTAs, minicamp, and training camp. And then another dude Devontae Smith, who I'm like, this guy didn't even really need a drum beat, but it's starting to kind of break through to me. Like they're like really excited about Smith having taken a step as a downfield playmaker. It sounds like, which he didn't really need to do. He's already very good. But any of those guys, or either of those guys, or anyone else that's kind of jumped out to you in that way?
Denny Carter, you go.
Yeah,
first.
I mean, I think I did the Devontae blurb the other day, and that story was effusive with praise about Devontae Smith. And AJ Brown was, I mean, AJ Brown kind of does this where he's like, I'm not the number one, it's Devontae. But after a while of him saying that, I kind of start to maybe believe him. And the downfield stuff is cool. And I do think that Kellen Moore's offense just being very different. I mean, they're talking about 95% of the plays are new. That was in the report.
Yikes! That sounds like a bust for the entire offense.
That it's concerning, and so obviously it'll be interim head coach Kellen Moore by October 3rd. But I do think that changes things. There'd be way more motion, more 3 receiver sets, maybe a little faster offensive pace. So, Devontae Smith looks really good to me at ADP. And who was the other guy you mentioned?
JSN.
Right. And JSN, I mean, I was out on him last year, felt pretty good about that, but I'm in on him this year because, again, you're talking about a completely different offensive environment. You're talking about way more 3 receiver sets. They're actually going to get him on the field, and Ryan Grubb seems to know what to do with him, whereas the previous coaching staff didn't quite seem sure what to do.
They did not at all. And Devontae, I know Devontae entered the league as an older prospect, but Devontae, I almost wonder so to win the Heisman Trophy as a receiver, you have to be the complete package, obviously. So he entered the league as a finished product, as a route runner and all that, but he didn't have an NFL ready body. But he survived on just his tactical skills essentially. And I don't know if he's actually any bigger or anything. I almost wonder if the Devontae praise is about he's fully come into his NFL strength and size now. Not that he ever really played small or anything like that.
But he was small. I mean, he was 176, I think, when he came in. So, just to get up into the one, I don't know if he's.
I don't even know if he's gained weight, but I just get the feeling he probably just looks more like an NFL adult now, and maybe that is creating some of the.
That's been part of the hype, is that Sirianni said something like, he's always been athletic, he's always taken care of his body and everything, but he's really brought that this offseason or something along those lines.
That makes sense to me, and I just wonder how much more juice there is to squeeze, and maybe honestly it's just about looks with Devontae, and because he, like you said, he's already a well above average NFL player, and JSN, man, I don't know. It's just still why would he be featured over Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf? I know Tyler Lockett's 1,000 years old. He thankfully has some things working in his favor, namely one of the most receiver-friendly systems we've seen in a long time, at least in college.
I think you can pass Lockett. Lockett fell off a bit last year.
He did fall off a bit last year. He did.
The
DK hype's been more.
I love Metcalf. I've had Metcalf on a frightening number of teams. If he gets injured,
I like Metcalf this year too.
I'm gonna literally the bank examiner.
I'm sick of the injuries. I would like no more injuries. They're no fun. Really.
Denny, after the bank examiner takes my home to make ends meet, I have to become a bank examiner in Maryland.
Is that how it works?
I will be taking your home then, yes.
And you're going to build a parking lot in my backyard.
I agree to work for the bank, yeah. We immediately pave over the golf course in your backyard, just turn it into a parking lot, cut down all the trees. The deck is made a coffee station.
Are all bank examiners just displaced homeowners?
They are displaced fantasy football players, more specifically. Yeah, I shouldn't have drafted Devontae Smith that many times there. I don't think he was the reason my teams went belly up, but it's taking it too far.
Is it too far?
Too far. All right, guys, we gotta get out of here, but tell the people about what you got going on over at Road World.
Well, Denny and I. You go, Denny.
Yeah, I'm going to have my boring running back piece up on Friday, I believe. And I'll make it especially triggering for Ukraine. And
thanks, man.
Yeah. And yeah, so that's what I have going. What were we going to say, Pat?
I was going to say, Denny and I are almost done with our division preview series. We still have the NFC East to go. We don't quite have our guests lined up yet, but we just did the AFC East with Joe Buscaglia and Zach Rosenblatt from The Athletic talking the Bills and Jets. That was extremely good. We've had a lot of really,
It was good.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying this. Like I really, folks need to check that out. Like there was some really actionable information in there.
Nice.
Ben Raven was great on the Lions last week. We've had a lot of really good guests, so check that out. And I've been trying to finish an article, and by finish I mean start. Been really wanting to do one.
I know that game.
I know. I'm going to call it the Fateful 8. I'm going to go through the 8 most what I consider fateful ADPs for the first 8 rounds. Like
nice.
So like via groups of 12, like the players with the highest variance, kind of like the most wide-ranging outcomes, who I think will be like kind of like the hinge point players in each of the first 8 rounds. So yeah,
I love that.
Can't wait. I can't wait to finish it because I really can't wait to start it.
September 1st, folks.
Yep. Yeah. It's coming out. It's coming out week 1.
Here's a trick that I just did to myself this week. If you're having trouble getting a post completely finished and that post is running long, publish part 1 on Monday, part 2 on Tuesday, part 3 on Wednesday, and part 4 on Thursday, which isn't written yet. that
part
you have
5
to
profit, of course.
Yeah, that you have to spend Wednesday. But that, you know what? Wednesday afternoon's gonna get spent on that article if you box yourself in that corner.
Well, yeah, I really box myself in. Yeah.
But I would recommend people check out that article series I'm alluding to. There is on the running back oasis that potentially exists in rounds 7 through 10. There's actually some of these. Honestly, Denny, it's the same kind of idea with this boring running back production. I'm like,
yeah,
I think I need to consider taking Zamir White now.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to.
No, you never have to.
I don't want to think about this. He should be in the 5th round, and I should never think about it. But he's not. So what do I do?
I read that, and I thought Corain beat me to the punch.
And this just goes on our continuing blood.
You guys will be perfect complementary pieces because you guys have a lot of like the same thoughts and ideas, but come at it from different angles and stuff. So that'll be really interesting.
It'll be a fun one to write.
Yeah. So check that out, legendaryupside.com, and we'll be back here. We're gonna have a rankings pod up that I'm recording later today. So look for that. Also doing a legendary sickos this week. Daniel Raz is going to have an article up on the site looking at the running backs going in round 7 through 10, kind of more macro landscape perspective. And then Steph Miller has a dynasty auction article that'll be out next week. So lots of great content at legendaryupside.com. $10 a month, $99 for the year. Hope to see you over there, and we'll see you guys soon.